I'm Chris Lee, host of the Southeastern 14 podcast. Today is our Friday edition, and we spend our Fridays talking about a big game that's coming up on Saturday. This one, to me, the biggest one of all in the SEC, the most interesting to me, that is Arkansas and Texas A&M. That'll be in Jerry's World on Saturday. One of my good friends in the sports media business is Olin Buchanan. He's a writer at texags.com. Just great at his job and one of the nicest people I know in the business. Olin, thanks for joining us today to help us discuss this game.
Oh, my pleasure, Chris. Anytime you want to talk A&M football, I'm ready to talk.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. If I had told you 3 weeks ago this game was going to have a 5.5-point spread attached to it, would you have believed me?
You know, I might have because of the history. If you look back when this game has been played in Arlington, they've had 6 games since A&M joined the SEC that they played in Arlington. Five of them was decided by less than a touchdown. I think I may have that. I think that's right. 5 of them has been decided by a touchdown or less, and 3 went into overtime. But I don't think that I would come into this season thinking that A&M would be struggling as much as they have, and that Arkansas. Now, I'm not saying I'm surprised that Arkansas is playing well. But I am surprised that you come into this game with it looking like Arkansas is playing better than A&M.
What do you think the crowd split will be like in Jerry's World?
I think it's still going to be about 50-50. Aggies travel well, and they support their team. I know they're frustrated with them right now, but I think they'll still turn out. I know the Arkansas fans are really excited because, let's face it, they were down for a long time. And now they're, very competitive. I think they're kind of like the South Central Louisiana Mud Dogs before the Water Boys started playing for them. They were down. Everybody was beating them. And then they got some, some good fortune. I think the hiring of Sam Pittman really changed that program. And now there's somebody you have to take seriously.
Well, I think the Water Boy might have gotten into that Texas-Arkansas game a couple weeks ago, the way that was decided faster than any of us expected. What did that do in terms of sending shockwaves across the state that you live in? Because I don't think anybody expected that.
Well, you know what? Now, a lot of us down here picked Arkansas, and not just because they hate Texas. But, you're going to go play an SEC team, even if it's a team that has struggled in recent years. You better be strong and big in the defensive line, and Texas isn't. Now, that said, did I think that I personally picked Texas, but I know a lot of people didn't. And I personally am not surprised that Arkansas necessarily won, but I am surprised that Arkansas was just so overpoweringly dominant. And I came away thinking, Arkansas looks really good and Texas looks really bad. So I think this game against A&M is a great opportunity to find out, on the scale, which was it more? Was it more that Arkansas is just really good, or is it more that, Texas is pretty weak?
I look at the Arkansas A&M matchup, and I think this is one of those games that whatever happens, we'll say, of course, that's what happened. At least that's how I see it, because I look at the way Arkansas is playing. I look at the way A&M is having some troubles on offense, and I say, you look at the momentum, and maybe you say that's how this was going to go down. On the other hand, I don't think Arkansas can play a lot better than it did a couple of weeks ago. A&M's got a ton of talent. The skill positions on offense, they've really got some serious players there. And we'll talk about that in a minute. On defense, they lead the country in scoring defense. They're one of the 10, if not 5 most talented teams in the country. Jimbo Fisher is further along in building that program and his image than is Sam Pittman. So to me, I'll look at this, and there's 2 distinctly different ways it can go, and that's what makes this one so fascinating to me.
I know a lot of people are picking Arkansas, and I understand it. They're playing well. They've done some great things. A&M's not playing well, but I keep hearing, well, Barry Odom's going to come up with some ways to confuse Zach Calzada, and he's such a good defensive coordinator, which he is. And Zach Calzada is inexperienced, which he is, but Jimbo Fisher is going to match wits with anybody. And on the other side, A&M's defensive coordinator is as good as there is, Mike Elko, and he's got a lot of talent to work with. Well, is he going to be able? It's not like KJ Jefferson, has been a starter for a whole year or two. So does he have more experience than Calzada? Yeah, but is he a vastly experienced guy, and is his game limited? He's not known as a great passer, even though he had like 360 yards last week, but that was against Georgia Southern. So I think when you break it down, you see two teams that really probably want to try to do the same thing, which is force the opposing quarterback to beat them with their arm. And A&M definitely wants to take the run away from KJ Jefferson and limit Arkansas and say, if KJ Jefferson, if you can put it on his shoulders, he can win it with his arm. Well, okay, but he's going to have to prove it. And I think Arkansas wants to try to take everything away out of A&M's running game and say, hey, if Zach Calzada, if you can beat us in your second career start, more power to you.
Well, A&M has got the issues with an inexperienced quarterback with the offensive line. We'll dive into those in a minute. But, man, I just watched them. They've got Devin Achane. They've got Isaiah Spiller. They've got Aniyah Smith. And there's the Weidemeyer kid, too, who hasn't been as big of a factor. But they've just got so many kids who can make plays in the open field that if you just get okay play at offensive line and quarterback, that's good enough to win right there, it seems to me.
Well, I think what you want first and foremost, or the two first and foremost things you want from Zach Calzada is don't turn the ball over, don't give Arkansas a short field, and then make the routine play. I don't think they're asking him to, and quite frankly, that's something he's struggled with, especially at Colorado when he came in. There was a play I can remember just for the half. Jalen Weidermeyer's wide open at the 10. Nobody's within 5 or 6 yards of him. He's going to score a touchdown, and the ball sails 5 feet over his head. So Calzada has to settle down. We all know he has a strong arm, but who cares how strong it is if it's not accurate, right? So they do have guys. They have big play threats all over the offense, and I agree that if the offensive line plays to a stalemate, and Calzada makes the routine plays, and A&M's going to be in really good shape.
How do you evaluate Zach Calzada? Because he's very talented. He's got weapons, as we've discussed. And, the line has not been good. And sometimes there's a couple things that come with that. There's the actual pressure, and then there's the times that, because you've had so many guys in your face, you start getting to a point where you're thinking you don't have as much time as you actually do. When an offensive line, kind of falls apart or is gelling the way A&M's is with 4 new starters, you bring all kinds of issues on a quarterback. So isolating that from his actual performance, how do you see what he's done so far? And maybe what do you expect of him on Saturday?
Well, I think he's going to keep getting better. I really do. He made a huge step from Colorado in that game. If you watched it, when he came in after Haynes King broke his leg on the 6th play of the game for A&M, he came in and he looked like he was panicked. Like I said, he was overthrowing everything. He had one time Isaiah Spiller open in the flat, would have been an easy 20-yard gain. He put it 3 feet over his head. But he settled down in that game, and in the fourth quarter actually played pretty well. Now, I don't think Zach Calzada is a guy that goes out and wins a football game for you because of him. Those really good quarterbacks that, you can just count on them. They're going to get it done. The guys around him have to play well. And that's why I say if he just makes the routine play, find the right guy and get him the ball. You don't have to and some of that pressure that he's under, some of it's his own fault because he has shown the tendency to hold on to the football too long and just, the play's not there, either run or throw it away. And he's taken some sacks needlessly. He also threw an interception last week when he kind of looked like Bo Nix at South Carolina, just run out of bounds or throw the ball away. He was running out of the pocket to his left. He's a right-handed guy. He's running to his left. His receiver is well covered. Throw the ball out of bounds and go to the next play. But no, he's going to try to make a play, and it gets intercepted. So that's a lot of things you see from inexperienced quarterbacks. And I think that each week, with more experience and with more hard coaching, I guarantee he's getting hard coaching, that he'll get better. And I think the offensive line will be better, number one, if Leighton Robinson is back playing that right guard position. And secondly, just because they've heard how much they suck all week, and I think they've been the focus of practice. Now, are they going to be dominant like they were last year? No, not yet. But I do expect them both to be better in the offensive line and at quarterback.
Well, he definitely got hard coaching. It seemed like he had Jimbo Fisher in his ear after every series last week. But let's talk about the offensive line. Health obviously would fix some things, and just playing together as a unit, continuity is a very important thing with the offensive line. How much do you think this can get better for them, and how long will it take?
Well, I don't know how long it'll take. I think it can get better. I think it get a lot better. And one of the issues that they had, and this is not an excuse because you got to play. A football team is not your starting 11; it's everybody. So you got to have other guys play, and that's why Alabama's always so good. You lose somebody, they have somebody else ready to play. But A&M was expecting to have Luke Matthews at center and Haynes King at quarterback. Well, who calls all the signals? Your center and your quarterback. And now you've got a true freshman playing center and a guy that, was supposed to be your backup playing quarterback. Now, that true freshman's a 5-star guy that's going to be really, really good, and he has had some moments. His name's Bryce Foster. He's had some really good moments, but he's been inconsistent. Sometimes he's been knocked backwards, which is a surprise because the guy's just a massive human, but you find out that it's going to be different in the SEC, right? And then you get knocked backwards against Colorado, which he did a couple times. Then you start thinking, well, what's it going to be like when you get an SEC defensive lineman? So you better have the right frame of mind. They had to, I don't know if Leighton Robinson's going to be able to play this week or not, but they desperately need him for his physicality and his experience. But I think what they're going to have to do, quite frankly, is when they do run, they need to run, attack the edges, especially with A-Chain, because he is so fast that if you can get to the edges, and that's where your best and most experienced linemen are, with Kenyon Green at tackle and Jameer Johnson at the other tackle. So I think that's what they'll do. I think they'll look for a lot of swing passes and a lot of high percentage passes where you don't have to hold on to the ball too long. Even some deep passes where you can just say, hey, they got the freshman Damon Demas who had the 70-yard touchdown catch last week. I could see him running some play action a couple times, just trying to throw really deep, if for nothing else, to make Arkansas move their safeties back.
We've talked a lot about that offense versus defense when A&M's got the ball, because I think that's where the nagging questions are. Now, the defense, on the other hand, I believe they lead the country in scoring defense. They've been so good so far. What makes them go over there?
Well, their defensive line, first of all, is the strength of the team. DeMarvin Leal, I think, is a first-round draft choice next year. Michael Clemens is a guy that was having a big year last year, and then he broke his foot, I think it was, and missed. He had like 4 sacks through 5 games, then missed the last 5 games. But he's back now and playing really well. He was suspended for the first game, but he's back now. McKinley Jackson, the big-time guy, as an interior lineman, that they beat Alabama in a recruiting battle with him, but he's been suspended for 2 games. So last week was his first timeout, his first action. So they have him back, and then Jaden Peavy's a super senior. So that the defensive line is really experienced, and it's really good, and it's really big, which is all the things Texas wasn't. And that's why I think you'll find Arkansas will find, it running a little bit harder. And I think the secondary has really come along. I think Jalen Jones at cornerback, he's a sophomore. I think he's on his way to become one of the best in the SEC. I would say he has All-American potential. Antonio Johnson's a guy that has worked his way into the starting lineup. He's also a sophomore. He's a nickel back, and he's playing. He's been extraordinary. The safeties are solid. I think they're hoping Miles Jones, their corner that played so well last year, but had trying to get back from a broken foot. They're hoping that he's going to be back this week. But if he's not, they've got some guys that are actually playing pretty well there, including a freshman, Deuce Harmon. So the big question has been the linebacker play, because Buddy Johnson's now playing for the Steelers, and he was such a big part of A&M's defense last year. And quite frankly, there's great athleticism at linebacker, but the fact is they've been very inconsistent, sometimes running themselves out of plays. So they've got to be a little more disciplined. But when you got 9 starters coming back from a defense that was ranked 9th in the country, you have high standards. And A&M did not play particularly well in the first game on defense, still gave up only 10 points, did not play well in the first half against Colorado. Elko made some adjustments, and since then, A&M has not allowed a point in the last 7 quarters, and they've allowed 120 total rushing yards in the last 6 quarters combined.
All in that secondary has been really good so far, as you pointed out. Now, it is a beauty pageant of defensive backs in this league this year. You got the corners at LSU. You got 2 at Mississippi State who would probably get a lot more recognition a lot of other places. You got what they're doing at Georgia with all those kids. Of course, Alabama's loaded. Where do you put A&M's bunch up against the rest of the league?
Well, I'm not going to say they're the best, but I just think that they're right in there among, the best, 3 or 4, 2, 3 or 4. I mean, all the guys I just told you, I guarantee there's a lot of NFL players in that secondary. And quite frankly, the weakest, even when he's healthy, might now be Miles Jones, the super senior that I think has NFL potential. But they really have done an amazing job in a short amount of time of bolstering, raising the athletic ability and just football acumen back in that secondary. It wasn't that long ago. I remember about in Jimbo's first year, that secondary against Mississippi State, they win that game, except the secondary couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. Giving up, huge plays on 3rd and long. So it's so much better than it's been, just because, again, better football players, bigger football players, faster football players. They've got guys other guys wanted. Leon O'Neal was originally committed to Clemson. Damani Richardson could have gone anywhere he wanted. Jalen Jones was a 5-star guy, could have gone anywhere he wanted. Antonio Johnson, anywhere he wanted. So they've won some big recruiting battles, and they've developed those guys, and they're seeing the fruits of their labor back there.
One more question about offense before we just hit a specific thing or two about the matchup, and then I'll let you go. What's going on with moving Kenyon Green inside? Is that a thing that sticks, you think?
I don't think so. I think that was a reaction to the injuries that they've had. Layden Robinson's not playing well. Who's the most experienced guy at the other positions? A&M has a lot of guards that are, quite frankly, freshmen, maybe, or second-year players that aren't quite ready yet. Kenyon's played guard the first 2 years of his career, so the thinking was you can move him inside and start a guy that's a little bit older at tackle. the guy they started did not play well. He absolutely he got beat by a guy from New Mexico. Now I understand the guy from New Mexico that he was lined up against that beat him. This guy named Noble is supposed to be really, really good, but he's still at New Mexico, and he's not the size of the guys that you're going to see in the SEC. So that was just why they moved him. I expect that Kenyon Green will move back to tackle if they can afford to move him, and if they can't, then I kind of suspect that you'll see a different guy taking a lot of the snaps at tackle than you did last week. They do have a freshman named Reuben Fothery that they brought in, and I thought he played really well. But, again, it was against New Mexico.
Yeah, Joey Noble kind of lived in that backfield in the part I watched it last week, which I was not expecting to see.
Well, yeah, but you weren't expecting to. You were expecting to see him going against Kenyon Green.
True, and that is true. Yeah,
it's a guy who's I think a junior making his, or maybe even a senior making his first start.
Let's talk about Arkansas when it's got the ball tomorrow. KJ Jefferson's really come along. Arkansas has really had a tremendous rushing attack. They got several guys that can run it. They're deep in the backfield, at least at what they've shown so far. Traylon Burks has not had a Traylon Burks type year, but he's an NFL receiver, maybe a first rounder if it goes well. Where do you see Arkansas giving them issues on Saturday?
Well, I think they're going to, with the running game. Again, A&M has to plug some holes inside because Traylon Burks can squirt through there. He's really fast, not big, but he's really fast. And just the threat of KJ Jefferson, I think you worry more about him as a runner than you do as a passer. So I think what A&M wants to do is they're going to tell their defensive ends to play responsibility. Don't be crashing in just because you think the ball's going inside, and try to get him in obvious passing situations or in passing situations where they're more likely to throw, and then keep him in the pocket. I think you feel like that if you can keep him in the pocket, that KJ Jefferson, then you're taking away what he does best, which is freelancing and running. And I think that's going to be their first priority, is trying to limit what KJ Jefferson does running the football. And if you can do that, and you still got to be mindful of Traylon Burks, and you still got to be mindful of Traylon Smith. But I think you feel like if you can do that, then you're going to have a successful day, because I just don't think that that KJ's a guy that you want to have to. You don't want him to have to throw for 300 yards to win the football game.
Arkansas's got a good defense. They've got a good safety in Jalen Catalon. PFF hasn't graded him super well this year, but he was a potential All-American coming into the year. He's got a couple of picks. They've got some experienced linebackers in Grant Morgan and Bumper Pool. Not the most athletic bunch, but it's been a productive one. Now, I look at, again, their skill guys that they've got, and I don't think there's a lot of teams in the country that can match up with A&M when they get the ball to those 3 or 4 guys in space. To me, that's the obvious plan of attack against them, right?
Yeah, I would. I do. Of course, it's easy to say you need to get them in space. It's harder to do that. But I would be looking for, swing passes. They haven't run jet sweeps to Devon Achane, but I sure would be, because if I can get a seal block with my tackles on the end, if I can get Achane coming around, I think he can outrun the linebackers to the corner, and you have a potential for a big play. Quite frankly, you have a potential for a big play anytime he has the ball, but A&M does have guys that can make big plays. So you've got to figure out the most efficient ways to get them the ball. And as we've seen, Calzada's been very inconsistent throwing the ball downfield. So I think A&M may need to get creative and do some things that, maybe they typically don't do. I don't know last time I saw A&M run a jet sweep, and it surprises me. But when you've got the guys they have, there's just too much ability not to find ways to get the ball to them where they can do some things. So that's why I say if Calzada can make the routine play, which just means, hey, this is the guy who's open. I've identified him. I don't have to throw a great pass. I just got to get him the ball and then let them do what they're able to do. I think A&M will be in pretty good shape.
All right, give me a pick on this one.
Yeah, I still think that I'm always going to take the team that I think has the most talent. And I still think, despite their issues, A&M has more talent. I think there's probably no more than 5 or 6 players on Arkansas that would start for A&M. That's my opinion. So I think A&M will win. I think Arkansas will be very competitive. But I think A&M under Fisher has learned how to win tight fourth quarter games. They don't get nervous. So I think I could see A&M winning this game, something along the lines of 24-17, but having to make a stop late to keep it from going to overtime, or maybe even to have to save the win. But I think I would still take A&M despite their issues, because I do think A&M has more talent.
You guys do a ton of stuff at texags.com, video, written content, podcasts. I mean, it's an unbelievable enterprise that you guys run. Tell people where they can follow your coverage, what you guys will be doing for that game, where they can follow you on Twitter, and anything else that you'd like to promote there, Olin.
Well, we just appreciate if you give us a look at texags.com. That's the abbreviated version of Texas Aggies, texags.com. I write columns from the game. We have our radio guy, David Nuno, who does several podcasts. Billy Lucci will be doing, our boss will have his thoughts on the game. We'll have highlights. So quite frankly, we'll probably analyze and overanalyze the game every which way possible. So if you really are interested in the way in the way Texas A&M plays, or what's going on with that football team, we like to think that we are the premier outlet for A&M football and A&M sports in general.
Hey, what would SEC football be without overanalyzation, right?
Big 12 football, I guess.
Oh man, I like your answer there, Olin. You've been a great guest. Thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we will catch up with you for something related to AM at a future date. It's going to be a fascinating season. It's always interesting in Aggie land, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Chris, anytime you want to talk, you give me a shout.
All right, he's Olin Buchanan of TexAgs.com. I'm Chris Lee, the host of The 14. We'll see you again next week.